Our story begins in 1919, when World War I ended and the famous Treaty of Versailles was signed. This treaty contained a critical clause called Article 231, known as the War Guilt Clause. It stated that Germany alone bore full responsibility for all losses caused during World War I. France and Britain wanted Germany to pay heavily for losing the war. They demanded reparations totaling $33 billion, which equals roughly $270 billion today. This amount was so enormous that Germany only finished paying it in 2010, nearly 100 years later. The consequences were immediate and devastating. Germany's currency, the German mark, collapsed. In 1922, a packet of bread in Berlin cost 160 marks. Just 1 year later, that same bread cost 200 billion marks. The economy was shattered. Unemployment skyrocketed. People suffered tremendously. Into this chaos stepped Adolf Hitler, a young political leader with a terrifying talent for manipulating desperate crowds. In 1923, his Nazi party attempted to overthrow the German government through a coup. Although it failed, his popularity surged. Hitler spread propaganda blaming Jews and socialists for Germany's humiliation. He told people that anti-national elements within the country were responsible for their suffering. Over the next decade, propaganda flooded Germany through paid media, rallies, and hate speeches. Then in 1929, the Great Depression struck. Unemployment worsened dramatically. By 1933, 6 million Germans were jobless. Families were homeless. Children starved. Exploiting this misery, Hitler declared himself dictator of Germany in 1933. He began building his dream of a racially pure German empire, a Reich populated exclusively by people of the Aryan race. Jews and Slavic people had no place in his vision. To fuel hatred, Nazis promoted the Judeo-Bolshevism conspiracy theory, falsely claiming Jews had caused the 1917 Russian Revolution and the formation of the Soviet Union. In 1935, the world discovered Germany had rebuilt its air force. The Treaty of Versailles explicitly banned Germany from maintaining military power. This was a blatant violation. However, many in Britain believed the treaty's terms were excessively harsh. In June 1935, Britain even signed the Anglo-German Naval Agreement, formally allowing Hitler to build a navy. Meanwhile, France grew alarmed at Germany's militarization and constructed the Maginot Line, a 450-kilometer fortification along its eastern border. By 1938, Hitler believed his military was ready. He turned toward Austria first. He wanted all German-speaking nations united under one flag. His deeper goal was acquiring resources and providing Lebensraum, or living space, for his so-called superior Aryan race. In February 1938, Hitler pressured Austrian Chancellor Kurt Schuschnigg into signing an agreement that placed pro-Nazi officials within Austria's government. Within a month, the situation spiraled out of control. When the Austrian Chancellor proposed a national vote on independence, Hitler responded by marching his army into Vienna. The Chancellor resigned to prevent bloodshed. Hitler's propaganda ministry fabricated stories of communist riots in Vienna, claiming Austria had requested German military protection. The next day, Austria's parliament was dissolved. Austria ceased to exist as an independent nation, all without a single shot fired. Hitler then targeted Czechoslovakia, specifically the Sudetenland region where 3 million ethnic Germans lived. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain desperately wanted to avoid war. He believed appeasing Hitler would maintain peace. In September 1938, the Munich Agreement was signed, giving Germany the Sudetenland in exchange for Hitler's promise of no further expansion. But within 6 months, Hitler violated that promise. In March 1939, German forces invaded the rest of Czechoslovakia, splitting it into occupied territory and a puppet state called the Slovak Republic. Chamberlain faced fierce criticism for his failed appeasement policy. Hitler's next target was Poland. In a cunning diplomatic move, he signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union in 1939. This seemed contradictory since Hitler despised communist ideology. But both nations wanted Polish territory, so their interests temporarily aligned that on September 1, 1939, nearly 1 million German troops advanced into Poland from the north and south simultaneously. Britain issued an ultimatum demanding Germany withdraw. Hitler ignored it completely. Britain officially declared war on Germany. France, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Canada followed. Prime Minister Chamberlain announced the declaration over radio. Yet despite these declarations, no country actually sent military support to Poland. This strange period became known as the Phoney War. Poland's outdated army, still using horses, stood no chance against Germany's modern forces. Within 1 week, German troops occupied Poland. Hitler's success relied heavily on his revolutionary warfare strategy called Blitzkrieg, meaning lightning war. It emphasized overwhelming speed and surprise. Tanks would storm enemy positions so rapidly that opponents had no time to organize defenses. Then the Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, would attack from above. Wars were designed to end within days rather than months. To maintain this relentless pace, German soldiers were given a drug called Pervitin, known today as crystal meth. This drug eliminated fatigue, suppressed hunger and thirst, reduced pain, and boosted confidence. While devastating to long-term health, it gave German troops an enormous short-term advantage. Enemy soldiers rested at night, while German forces fought continuously, finishing invasions in 2 or 3 days. After Poland fell, the Soviet Union invaded from the east. Poland was partitioned between Nazi Germany and the Soviets. Stalin then turned attention toward Finland, worried that Germany might eventually occupy it. Since Leningrad sat only 50 kilometers from the Finnish border, Stalin demanded Finnish territory. Finland refused, and the Soviets launched a military invasion. Despite having a far larger and better-equipped army, the Soviets struggled for over 2 months. The Moscow Peace Treaty of March 1940 gave the Soviet Union 11% of Finland's land. Meanwhile, Hitler focused on Scandinavia. On April 9, 1940, using Blitzkrieg tactics, Germany invaded Norway and Denmark. Both small nations fell quickly. Norway's government fled to London and established a government in exile. Hitler installed a puppet pro-Nazi government in their place. British Prime Minister Chamberlain, having failed to protect neighboring countries from Nazi aggression, resigned on May 10, 1940. Winston Churchill assumed leadership that same day. And on that very day, Hitler launched simultaneous attacks on France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. France had prepared the Maginot Line, a massive defensive wall along the German border. French troops lined this fortification, confident in its strength. Allied forces also positioned themselves along the Belgian and Luxembourg borders. Hitler divided his forces into 3 groups for the Battle of France. Group B attacked the Netherlands and then pushed into Belgium to engage Allied forces. Group C attacked the Maginot Line directly. But these were distractions. Group A executed the true master plan, secretly advancing through the Ardennes forest. French military experts had dismissed this dense forest as impassable. They were catastrophically wrong. Over 40,000 German military vehicles pushed through the Ardennes. On May 15th, they captured Sedan and turned northward. British forces fighting Group B in Belgium were suddenly attacked from behind. Allied soldiers found themselves surrounded on 3 sides with only one escape route, the sea, near the port of Dunkirk. Nearly 400,000 Allied troops were stranded on Dunkirk's beaches. The Nazi army was closing in rapidly. If evacuation failed, Britain and France could lose their armies entirely, potentially losing the war forever. That on May 26, 1940, Churchill launched Operation Dynamo, the largest military evacuation in history. German ground forces fired on the beaches while the Luftwaffe bombed from above. The British Royal Air Force provided cover for evacuation ships. Private fishing boats and civilian vessels from the English Channel joined the rescue effort. By June 4th, approximately 350,000 soldiers were successfully evacuated. However, most Allied military equipment was lost during the evacuation. On June 22, 1940, France surrendered to Hitler. Italian dictator Mussolini, allied with Hitler through the Pact of Steel, had also declared war on France and Britain on June 10. By July 1940, Hitler controlled Austria, Poland, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and France. Only Britain remained actively fighting Germany. America had not yet entered the war. choosing to stay out of European affairs after World War I. The Soviet Union maintained its peace agreement with Germany. Had fighting stopped at this moment, Hitler would have been the undisputed victor. He held an overwhelming advantage across Europe. So how did the situation eventually reverse? How did Britain survive and ultimately help defeat Germany? That story continues in part 2, which was filmed and edited alongside this video. You will not have to wait long. Until then, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.